what could have contributed to the success of my engagement with poverty alleviation in later years were actually lay at the University of Benin. My involvement in the cooperative movement was actually prompted by my ideological clarity in the University of Benin.
Take a look at society, every sector, industry. You see undeniably, we dominate all the fields. Fashola, RMD, Basket Mountain, Johnny Drew, Harmony, Oboli, just to name but a few. Great Uniben, great Uniben, great Uniben, great Uniben, great Uniben, great Uniben, great Uniben.
Come to another episode of the Uniben Alumni Series. As you know, this is a show where we celebrate distinguished alumni of our great institution, and also we hear their stories where they tell us how life was for them as a student of Uniben. And we hope that this and many other episodes will serve as inspiration to not just the Uniben student, but also the alumni and others who wish to listen and watch the video. And on today's episode, we have someone I refer to as an enigma when it comes to microfinancing in Nigeria and in Africa. So is Dr. Godwin Ehigiamusoe. He's the founder of Lift Above Poverty organization, which we popularly call Lapo. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us, sir.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you, sir. And Dr. Ehigiamusoe holds a Bachelor of Science and a Master of Science degrees from the Sociology Department, Faculty of Social Sciences, and also is an honorary doctorate degree holder from our institution. So let's go straight into the discussion. First off, you are from Edo State. Was proximity the reason why you studied at University of Benin? It was closer home. Was that the reason why you chose to study at the University of Benin?
That's possibly part of it. You realize then that when I did my entrance to the University of Benin, there was no jam. We need to just choose the university that you want to go and write what they call concessional entrance examination. And so I chose Benin clearly because proximity is also one, but I think Uniben was also one of the very prominent few universities at the time.
Okay, sir. You went into the institution to study sociology and anthropology, I guess.
Yes.
Oh, okay. For your first and second degree, was that your first choice of course, or because there are some people that have the saying that most people in the social sciences that they intended to study law, but found themselves in social sciences. Was that your case, sir, or you intentionally wanted to study sociology?
Well, I must confess that sociology, obviously, before I got to university, was not a choice. Actually, got admitted, to read English because in one of the gifts I think I have is the gift of writing, and then I remember then that my English teacher in the secondary school would always say, "I enjoy your composition," and he encouraged me to read English. So when I got to Uniben, I came across, some of the social sciences, political science, sociology, and for me, sociology had some attraction Essentially is intellectual discipline. And I strongly felt that, as my uncle, my former teacher, also recommended when he knew eventually that I was doing sociology, that sociology obviously would be a sort of a base for other professional involvement you have in the future. I have seen many people read sociology before they go to law, political science before they go to law. Often thought people always excel. So for me, sociology was an attraction because of its intellectual content.
Okay, okay, sir. You got into the institution, I think, in the late 70s.
Yes.
That just
1977 precisely.
1977. That's just about 7 years after the establishment of the university.
Yes.
For those of us that is from the 2000 era, we have a different experience of Uniben. We would like to know, those of you in the late 70s, how was your experience like, especially for you? What was the fond memories you still have of the institutions at then?
People often talk about, what was the welfare of the students and all that. Yes, there were, the obvious difference between what it was then and what it later became. But for me, it was not in that dimension. My dimension was that of the level of intellectual engagement. There was a lot of ideological favor. People were talking about how we can eventually have a great nation, realizing that we came out of the Civil War very strong in the 1970. We had the oil boom. And of course, by 1975, we have a person you could be considered as a charismatic leader. And so there was so much hope for the youth, especially university students then, that we are truly going to be a giant of Africa. When you also consider the fact that Nigeria, despite its distance from the war of liberation in South Africa, Nigeria was actively involved. So that's in a way captured the imagination of many of those students then. Particularly for me, it was a very great experience. I was a very active member of the Nigerian Socialist Youth Movement, Uniben branch. My first year in university was PRO. The last year I was the president, organizing symposia, organizing ideological classes on how is it possible to enhance the condition of the large number of Nigerians, which we refer to as the masses, who are the society. So for me, the student activity were more of, intellectual. You see students association organizing their weeks, and those weeks, activities in those weeks were mainly, by nature. So those, fond memory, what I had. I need to quickly add, maybe you eventually come to that, is that I think my engagement in Uniben beyond my academic work actually laid the foundation of what I have been doing in the past 30, 40 years.
So, okay. Maybe we'll come to that later on, because I believe you are talking about Lapo. Yeah. Okay, maybe we'll come to that. So, flowing down from the previous question about your fond memories, what are those attributes you took from the institution that are still very, very handy and helpful for you today?
Well, the first thing was that everybody concentrated on academic, and we were a bit also very, very fond of our lecturers. We look onto we more or less, elevated to a certain level. where we really look onto them. I know some of the lecturers in the department, the particular Professor Ukeagulu Wonjogu, um, an intellectual powerhouse. And so we have a number of them. So those people, in a way, define our outlook, especially in the area of the ethical patterns of our, behavior. What everyone was taught to do was to make sure that you do it right. There was no issue of, cutting corners. There was no issue of what later became very rampant, where you have compromise when it comes to lecturer and student relationship. That was purely out of it. It was in non-existent at that time.
Oh, okay, sir. So let's talk about your commitment to our institution. We have seen, especially in recent times, you have shown commitment, continual commitment to giving back to our alma mater. I remember a few years ago you sponsored the repainting of the faculty building, which comprises of social sciences and management sciences. And also a few years ago, I think you led the class of 78 to 83 or so to give back to our institution. What inspires these commitments and gestures to our institution?
I think the University of Benin actually gave so much to me, realizing that beyond all those experience we gathered, helping me to lay the foundation for my life, both in academic sense and wise. And they're also realizing that in 2016, the University of Benin honored me with doctorate of science, honorary doctor of science. When you put that together, I think Uniben has done so much for me. And so whatever I therefore do in return cannot in any way become with what I think they have offered me. Even before the painting of the Faculty of Social Science building, I know sometimes the seminar room for the postgraduate student the Department of Sociology and Anthropology, we try to also renovate it at that point in time. But the bottom line is this, that Uniben has done so much for me. And when you put that side by side with what I have done obviously becomes very, very little.
Oh, okay, sir. Sir, Uniben is 54 years. You were there during the early years, and this is many years after. What can you say about the institution after this many years? What are the growths you think you have seen or you've heard and all that?
Well, we can look at this in two dimensions. The dimension of what has happened to our educational system as a nation, and then we look at the dimension that is particular about the University of Benin. Beginning with what is particular about the University of Benin, the difference we can begin with what could be seen as the obvious in terms of the number of students. When we were there, we were quite few, and the advantage of that was that we almost know ourselves. Though we're in two campuses of Ekewa and Ugbo campuses, but we know ourselves. So that number obviously has exploded when we do that today. The number, and that has implication for almost everything that have changed. I think that in the past few years, there have been so much pressure on the infrastructure in terms of the hostel accommodation, even classrooms and all that. That obviously have changed. I also think that in the past, especially for the past few years now, in the administration, of the outgoing vice chancellor, physical outlook of the university has improved. Some of us, obviously, before her intervention, were worried about a sort of dilapidation in some areas, but I think that has changed, and that we give credit to the outgoing vice chancellor. In terms of engagement with, Nigeria, issues in Nigeria, our concern was really about Nigeria, whether you look at any group or not, even collectively, we as students, we were actively involved in trying to, make comments on the policies of government that affect the ordinary people. I don't think today that a body of the students, not particularly about Uniben, I think generally more concerned now about what is the condition of the living of the people at the bottom end of our society. That should actually be the concern of elites, or what I would say, elites in the making, university students. And that was our case then. But unfortunately, I had opportunity to a sort of reprimand, some students recently, that student unionism is first the protection of the interest of the students' body, and secondly, for me, is very important, is about speaking for the good of Nigeria. But now, as emphasis more or less giving awards, to prominent Nigerian for obvious reasons of returns in whatever form.
Okay, sir. So let's go back to your initial statement that you mentioned the University of Benin playing a significant role in what you are doing today. Can you please shed more light on that, sir?
Okay, I think what would have contributed to the success of my engagement with poverty alleviation in later years were actually lay at the University of Benin. I want to, outline this. First, I was trained to be a sociologist, an anthropologist. I'm proud of that because it prepared me significantly for what I was going to do. And secondly, when I went back to my master's degree, I did sociology of development, which is essentially development studies. And that's, look at the whole issue of poverty, the issue of development, the issue of underdevelopment, and what are the underlying factor issues in development or non-development. How do you therefore, in a way, address the problem of underdevelopment in poor nations? That gave me first intellectual clarity of what development is and what poverty alleviation should be. The second is the fact of my engagement in the socialist youth movement. Very early, before I left university, I had ideological clarity about what development should also be. It should be meaningful development, should be proving the condition of the largest segment of the society. And so when you put that together, my getting involved in poverty alleviation through the instrumentality of Lift Above Poverty Organization, Lapo, was actually a sort of offshoot of what I did in University of Benin. So, so when I therefore look back today, I thought I was intellectually prepared to do what I was doing. I was also ideologically prepared for what I was doing. So this, to a large extent, account for the success we have recorded.
Okay, sir. Please, sir, can you give us an insight about the early days of Lapo, how it started, and the challenges, especially that you faced when you started the organization?
Okay. Let me also begin by saying that Lapo was a deliberate organization, in terms of what led to it remotely, and also the immediate factors. The remote factors I have explained, my background in the study, and of course my eventual involvement in the cooperative movement when I graduated. Of course, my involvement in the cooperative movement was actually prompted by my ideological clarity in the University of Benin. I will explain this. When you want to go to special cadre in the civil service, administrative officer, cooperative, blah, blah, there were many. You write series of exams, beginning with one from ASCON. You go through various interview, and eventually you get to the final interview, the Civil Service Commission. And is there they will say, okay, what do you want? And obviously, my mates, everybody want to be administrative officer. Yes, on time, work in the ministry, eventually end as a permanent secretary. And I think the panelists were actually surprised when I said I want to be a cooperative officer. And so they really look at my choice when I wrote the application, the form. First choice, cooperative officer. Second choice, cooperative officer. So, and eventually they interviewed me, and when I came out, somebody was telling me, well, properly, you're going to be in the rural area and all that. But he didn't understand why I did that. In 1980, I think that was my second year. No, my third year university, completing my third year university. The 1980 vacation, I was posted to a vacation job. I was posted to the cooperative department. And when I interacted with cooperators, and it came clearly that cooperative for me was going to be an institutional tool to address the issue of poverty. Going by the definition of cooperative I got there, which is like this. A cooperative society is an economic association of persons with limited means, under limited means, who pool their resources together, and from that pool, for me, that resonated so well with my perspective, my ideological stance. So I made up my mind that I was going to therefore work in a cooperative movement after my graduation. That was why my first choice was cooperative officer. My second choice was cooperative.
There was clarity, no doubt at all.
So I was taken, and good enough, I was sent to a training for 1 year in cooperative, and eventually I was posted to rural area in Ogwashuku. It was while I was working in Ogwashuku as a cooperative officer that somehow I got disillusioned. How did it happen? I saw that the cooperative movement at its work, I think even what it is now, was not a very effective way. It was not managed in a manner. And the hope challenge was the challenge of officialization. Officialization in this way, that the government official, including myself at that point, we were more or less running the cooperative society for the cooperators. We should not be. But I can understand that, because the cooperative laws and regulations in states, I don't know then, even now, where the provisions of those cooperative laws and regulations were not significantly different from the cooperative laws and provisions of the cooperative ordinance of 1935. That is the colonial era. Yeah. So the colonial era concept of cooperative Africa was simply to organize these natives, these people who are not human, who are not very human. So the government officials who were white were to be involved in everything, control. But when you still take that to 1985, we are talking about that, obviously it stifled the growth of the cooperative movement. And I got the solution, and I now made up my mind. as a person, as an idealist who came and thought that the cooperative movement could be used, for effective poverty alleviation, is the solution. So I now said, what else could be done? What could be done in a non-governmental manner? So that to the early days. I will just give you the background. The early days. So what are the early days? I took 300 naira, 100 naira, 100 naira, 100 naira to 3 women, 100 naira to Felicia Moye, 100 naira to Monica Buike, 100 naira to Obiagele Nwoko. They were members of my church, Christ Children's Church, non-lost.
I'm also a member of Christ Children's Church.
Okay. In Ogwashuku branch. So I gave them every market day, 4th day, I will go and collect 10 naira as repayment. And within 5-6 market days, I had more than another 100 naira I gave to somebody else. And so that actually was the beginning of what. But this is the action. But what you need to also understand is this. Lapo didn't start with that action I have just described, that is giving money. Lapo started with a well-informed clarity about what you want to do. For instance, why the name? Lift Above Poverty Organization. The name was more from the circumstances at that time. The economic crisis Nigeria goes through today actually started in 1982 when there was a cut in the international oil market, and that decreased the revenue for the nation. And that has implications for government capacity to meet its own obligation, inclusive of salaries. And so Shagari then came up with a sort of a bucket of what he called austerity measure. They were in effect. So he was removed by Buhari. Buhari could not also handle the economic situation. So one of the reasons that also led his downfall is also trying to deal with the economic crisis and other things. Babangida took over in 1985. In 1986, Babangida was dealing with the economy. At a point, he was reported to have said that he still wonder why the economy has not collapsed. But eventually, he to the IMF and adopt the structural adjustment program they call SAP. He didn't actually adopt it in a manner that would enable him to get the IMF loan, the International Monetary Fund loan. He refused the International Monetary loan, didn't take the loan, which many Nigerians perhaps were happy about. But unfortunately, he adopted conditionalities. It is like you go to First Bank and they said that the condition you should meet. You will adopt condition, but you did not take the loan. So the implication was that the central component of that adjustment were this: divide the national currency, which we did. Rationalize the workforce in the public sector. That is a fanciful name for retrenchment, which they did. Okay. So, remove subsidy from social services, which they did. And the cumulative effect of this resulted in the level of poverty increasing. I think statistically, with the statistics we have then, was that the level or the rate of poverty increased from about 18% to 48% in 18 months. Also, so for me, my response to that level of poverty set up Lift Above Poverty. Okay, that was the response. That was my response. For me, to clarity again, was that the program of Lapo, as you see it then, as even as it is as they are today, are actually the way I conceptualize poverty. I conceptualized poverty then, and I think it's still true, that poverty is an octopus with tentacles. Octopus with tentacles. And those major tentacles of poverty are material deprivation. You don't have money, you don't have things, which many people think is only poverty. The other tentacle is poor health. Poor health is a function of poverty, dimension of poverty. And then the final one for me was social exclusion. The poor person is withdrawn. The poor person have low self-esteem. So these were the three dimensions that I identified. And Lapo programs then and now are influenced by this. We have the microfinance, which many of you know, to address material deprivation. We have health programs. We have one of the best resource medical diagnosis center in South, based in Benin Medical Care, which plus other health things we do right here to address the issue of poor health. We have social empowerment program for about 20 years. We have run a 30-minute television program called Bridging the Gap to bring the issue of participation, gender equity, and social inclusion, to the fore, for people to do. Lapo, therefore, was based on very clear foundation, and this is where we are today. So what are the challenges? We talk about challenges.
Yes, especially at that early stage.
Yeah. What the challenges we have had actually have differently come at different stages of our growth. At the beginning in Ogwashiku, when I was doing Lapo on the pipeline, the biggest challenge then, when I look back, was the issue of acceptance. Here is a non-governmental organization. Is saying that I will give you loan. You are not going to bring collateral. You are not going to bring guarantor. You are not going to be anything. We give you loan. And so many people, many poor people then felt that it was too good to be true. So we made effort, especially when you're organizing them into group. So that was a challenge for us. But when we had that acceptance, the next challenge was the challenge of having adequate fund to meet the needs. Okay, so I started with my own fund, and then eventually we got support from the Ford Foundation and other organizations. And over time, because of our strength, because of our impact, before our growth, we were able to leverage some even credit facilities from financial institutions. So we addressed that. The third one was the issue of people, that is staff. When you realize at that time that we never had anywhere to recruit experienced microfinance professionals from, we never had. And so we have to invest massively in a training center, which today have transformed into a monotechnic. So we have to hugely invest in our training, and we overcame that. Finally, in 2001, 2002, we embark on what we call scaling up program. That we want to become big, want to reach millions of Nigerians and all that. That again presented its own challenges. But credit to my colleagues and credit to Nigerians, we were able to really scale up and made that huge impact in Nigeria and Sierra Leone.
Okay, sir. We are gradually getting to the end of the interview, sir. So, lastly, I can say by all standards that Lapo has been a success. If we consider the impact it has made in our society, we can say that. How fulfilled are you looking back all these years and this level of success? How fulfilled are you?
Oh, I would say I'm fulfilled, but like I tell people that I'm not super fulfilled or surprised because I've been involved. I've been in the growth, and when you are in the growth of something, you don't feel super. You're not surprised. You are not, so excited because
Yeah.
this grow gradually. But there are areas I think we have made some significant impact. The first one for me is the fact that we influence not only in Nigeria, Africa, we're part of those LP institutions globally that influence a movement that eventually has been accepted. That is for poor people to be able to have institutional credit, to have an account in the bank. Before Lapo in Nigeria, what poor people ordinarily would want to get money is that money lender or from their savings group and all that. But we created a movement that ensured that poor people, no matter how poor you are, you go to a financial institution, you have an account, you have a credit, you go and take, you come, pay and take. For me, and today we have a large number of microfinance banks across the land today. And so I am happy that I was a part of those persons globally and part of those persons and institutions in Nigeria that made that possible. I was a key consultant to the central bank on the formulation of the Nigerian policy. That is number one. Number two is the fact that I never knew at that point that we will make impact on unemployment. Today, within the Lapo system, when I talk about Lapo system, probably with people say group, we have about 11,100 full-time staff. This is not excluding the driver, excluding the cleaners. Okay. For me, I think that, and not to say of many people have worked in Lapo and left for other things. And so I think for me, that is also very interesting. The third one is what are those institutions that have, come out of the Lapo? We started, that's Morton. We have the Benin Medical Care, which is a great diagnostic and institution. We have the first licensed microinsurance company in Nigeria. Actually, is doing well and making impact. We have the largest micro leasing company, micro investment services, which is the first micro leasing company. In fact, the MD is the president of the Equipment Leasing Association of Nigeria. And so we have the Sierra Leone. We have significantly also influenced the microfinance company in microfinance practice in Sierra Leone through the Lapo microfinance company there. So those are the things look back. I think we have made some impact. Obviously, it makes me happy, not super excited.
Thank you very much, sir. We're glad that you could create time to be part of the program for today. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Thank
All
you,
right.
sir. We'll be speaking. Okay, please go ahead, sir.
No. I said, let me commend you for what you are doing. Let's begin to inspire the younger generation. People always say that your times were easy. No, there's no time that be easy. There could also be, when you compare even our time, when we look back to what was happening about 10, 20 years before then, we saw all those people things were not easy. So I think at every generation, there are challenges, and those challenges to a large extent contain the seed for innovation and greatness. Without the economic crisis of 1980s, there would have not been Lapo.
Thank you very much once again, sir. Yes. We'll be speaking with Dr. Godwin Ehigiamusoe, the founder of Lift Above Poverty organization, Lapo. Dr. Ehigiamusoe holds a Bachelor of Science and MSc degrees from the Sociology Department of the Faculty of Social Sciences, University of Benin. Continue to subscribe to our channel. We'll bring you more exclusive interviews with distinguished alumni of our great institution. Bye for now.
1970, we sure we did the forefront. Knowledge for selfies, for sure we did the work. Auditorium to basement of all faculty of law.